Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Greetings, race fans, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's presentation of the Radical Esports Cup. J.R. Gregory here with you on the call. Beside me in the commentary booth, racing Ron Mons, and as always, our friend and colleague in the production carrier, Joshua Wilkie. The star of today's show, the Radical SR10, 425 horsepower, 725 kilos, no traction control, no ABS, and folks, we are broadcasting the top split of the public server 2100 GMT Friday, as we do every week. So this is not a league server, not a private race. You can join up and test your skills with this SR10 and appear on Apex Racing TV. And I'm here to tell you, I say this every week, mastering this car will make you better in every car that you drive. And as I encourage people to drive this car, I actually convinced one of our colleagues to get in this week, so we'll have a chance to speak to him after his experience racing the SR10 today, coming out of GT3 cars. So here we are. It is round 4 at Spa-Francorchamps, the famous track located in the Belgian countryside outside the municipality of Stavelot. Of course, began life as a racing circuit comprised on strictly public roads, hosting its first race in 1922. So that's right, over 100 years of history racing here in the Belgian countryside. 1924 saw the first 24-hour race held here, and 1925 the first Grand Prix. And of course, Spa currently hosts to F1, WEC, and the European Le Mans series. Today's configuration is 4.3 miles, 7 clicks, 20 corners. Current track record held by Valtteri Bottas in a Mercedes W09. He put down a 146.286. And Ron, I had an opportunity to get out here and run a few laps, and I got to tell you, this car felt absolutely fantastic, but there are a couple spots that I'm going to keep my eyes on. As usual, this car does not like putting down the power in low first and second gear corners, and that is going to happen every lap at La Source and exiting the bus stop, so we could see problems here. And what we're looking at right now, the entry to the Lacombe chicane, that is coming off of that long Kemmel straight, and what we're going to see all throughout the day is drivers getting a draft there, but it's easy for the front driver to move to the right and cover the inside. So if you want to make something happen going into Lacombe, it is critical to become a master of the outside move there. Very difficult to do, but it is doable. So I'll be keeping an eye on this group to see if anybody can pull off that move.
Yeah, I think there are plenty of really interesting sections on this circuit, ones I'm going to keep my eyes on. You mentioned how trying to get these cars up to speed is going to be a little bit difficult. I think the opposite end of that coin, just trying to slow these cars down is really, it's an extremely tricky thing, whether you're driving this car, whether you're trying to put on an overtake on another driver. That is one thing that always tends to bite these drivers on the butt when it comes time for not only the qualifying sessions, but also the race. I can imagine these cars desperately trying to scrub off speed going into that final chicane and Lake Home. I think it's going to be pretty difficult, but it's also going to be a really good overtaking opportunity.
My goodness, and these qualifying time, folks, if you spend time out on Spa and some other vehicles, I'm looking right now at a 2:13.37 set by Hernandez. He's our preliminary pole sitter with about 3 minutes left. That time may or may not stand, but my goodness, there is a ton of 2:13s there. The top half of the grid is putting down 2:13s, and that is flying. This car is fantastic out here at Spa, and we are in for a fantastic race. And one of the fun things, Ron, that we like to point out and observe is the terminal velocity that these cars get utilizing the draft on the Kemmel Straight. I can't remember how quick they got going last time, but this is definitely one of the fastest tracks to drive this SR10.
Well, I'm not sure how fast they were going in the draft at Laguna Seca last time out, but I do remember in Spa, these drivers were gaining about 12 to 15 miles an hour just being in the draft. So it shows you how dastardly effective the draft is in these cars. So I think going down those long straightaways, that is going to play a massive role when it comes time to trying to decide a winner for this race. The qualifying order is somewhat close, especially up towards the front. So really, all these drivers have put in their qualifying laps. They are very familiar with this track. It's probably the most popular in the iRacing service. So I can imagine plenty of these drivers have a lot of experience driving these cars at this track. So the margin for error is going to be minuscule for tonight's race.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we were talking there, Hernandez gets knocked off the top rung by John McHutchinson. And we have seen McHutchinson put in some very good performances in recent weeks. And he's kind of I wouldn't call him a frequent flyer, but when he shows up at one of these races, he's usually at the pointy end. So as we prepare to grid here, let's take a look at our qualifying results. As I said, it is John McHutchinson on pole. Hernandez will be next to him in position 2. Behind them in row 2, Friedrich next to last season's champion James Berry. Rees and Walters will be behind them. Ianni and Sanchez, Lelevre and Samir Kadura in 9 and 10. Our Canadian producer laughing in my ear there. You can't hear that, but in 11 and 12, we've got Gabriel Berger and Troy Eggerston. And we'll let that roll through. Jorge Gonzaga, a name will be familiar to our fans here. Kyriakopoulos in 14. Wrighton and Kent. Farina, Jaski, Gallus, our colleague Chad Henson there in 20. And one of my favorite radical driver names, Mika Hulkinen, there will take up the rear in 21st. So here we go. The clock is ticking down here on the grid as we wait for the lights. That is McHutchinson. McHutchinson actually not yet on the grid, so we're looking at Hernandez there in the number 4 car on the right. There's McHutchinson, and so he will have the inside run theoretically all the way down through Eau Rouge. Oh, I'm sorry. Look where the start finish is. He's going to have the inside run into La Source. My apologies. So the position is going to matter here on this chart. We'll sit here with McHutchinson and see how he gets off the line. No pace lap here, icy cold tires, and again, no traction control. So it can be a struggle to get these bad boys moving. And we are about to go green here at Spa. Here are the lights counting down, riding with McHutchinson. We'll see how he gets off the line. And we are green. McHutchinson looking pretty good. Everyone getting off pretty clean here. McHutchinson is going to hold P1, but it looks like Hernandez is going to have a conflict there with Friedrich there for P2. We're getting some side-by-side action in La Source. Somebody getting a little loose there. And as I said, difficult to put the power down there. That corner is going to be La Source of Le Smoke more than one occasion during this broadcast. I can guarantee you that. And McHutchinson pulling away already. He's got a half-second gap right out of the gate. Holy cow.
These cars are incredibly susceptible to lockups, so we're going to have to see if these drivers can get through this first lap cleanly, especially in those heavy braking zones.
Yeah, and we've got 3 or 4 wide here coming in to the first chicane coming out the Kemmel Straight, clean so far. And boy, that is something that we see in this Radical community. We are in the top split, so these are some of the best esports drivers in the world wheeling these Radicals around Spa, and driving clean, driving respectful, and driving incredibly well here, as we got McCutcheon from Hernandez, from Barry, from Friedrich, from Sanchez, who's jumped all the way up from 8 into P5. Iani, Rees, Lever, Berger, and Gonzaga will make up your top 10 as we are about halfway through lap 1 now.
I think there's some plenty of drivers making their way through the field right now. I'm surprised the store was as clean as it is. It should be noted that the field is somewhat small, not because we didn't have a lot of participation. We had 3 splits for this race here. Ooh, boy.
And that is a bummer. That is a hard hit. That is Galus with some help there. Maybe we'll get another look at that, but I definitely saw some contact between him and another driver. Some heavy wall contact there. We'll see whether or not he's going to need repairs or whether that Radical can keep going. And there's some mildly salty exchanges going on there. Oh, well, no, it looks like Gallus maybe came over when there was no room available. And my goodness, so there's our first incident of perhaps many today, as we are going to get back to live action. That is McCutcheon crossing start finish for the first time, putting down a 2:16.4, and those times are going to plummet as these tires warm up on these Radicals and the fuel load decreases.
One unique little feature when it comes to these Radical races is the fact that these drivers tend to set in actually faster lap times in the race than they do in the qualifying session. These cars usually take about 3 to 4 laps to really get all heat up and get all the juices flowing in the car, especially with the driver. So it's a really nice, unique little feature when it comes to these races. And these drivers tend to set much quicker, usually about 2 seconds quicker in the races than they are in their qualifying laps.
Wow, and there is a change of lead. Hernandez has got past McCutcheon. McCutcheon not putting up much of a fight there. He may have had a problem coming through Eau Rouge and may not have gotten the exit that he wanted, but Hernandez is now in the lead. And we see a couple more cars swapping position there through Lacombe. Looks like Gonzaga might have lost a spot, and meanwhile in front of Gonzaga, Roberto Farina has picked up 6 positions from his qualifying of P17. So Farina looking good here with Gonzaga sniffing around behind him.
So far, a fairly clean start between all these drivers. Unfortunately, I can't see that right now because for some reason my entire iRacing has decided to just give up working on me, and I'm currently trying to get that worked out, but I can imagine these drivers are racing hard already.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure Ron will be back in business here in just a moment. But yeah, we're watching Gonzaga here behind Farina, who, as I said, is the hard charger at this point, having moved up from 17 to 11 here as they're getting onto the backside of the circuit, getting ready to hit that couple of high-speed bends, heading into the bus stop. And Ron told you that was going to be one of the places we were going to take a look at here. Here we are through Blanchimont, and if you're a GT3 driver, you know it can be a little iffy there, but these Radicals can go through there absolutely pinned, as you're watching them do. And there is McCutcheon. He's going to get Hernandez back there, entering the bus stop. And there may have been a little slowdown there through Blanchimont, unsure at this point, but McCutcheon with Hernandez still all over him. And I don't think this one is over at this point as they come through La Source and head down the hill to start lap 3.
Yeah, even though we're so early on in this race, we still have a long way to go. 11 laps in total, which at a track like this is extremely long. You still have a lot of time for these drivers to try and get moves done on each other. So I think the battling is just going to heat up, and probably by the end of this race, we're going to see drivers trying to drive the widest Radicals they possibly could. We'll see these drivers defending for their lives by the time we reach about 2 laps to go, I think.
And another potential change there. And Hernandez is back in front, and Friedrich has followed him through. McCutcheon has dropped to P3 there, and that's the power of that draft on that Kemmel Straight. Hernandez moves from P3 up into P1, or I'm sorry, Friedrich moves from 3 to 2 there, following Hernandez past McCutcheon after taking advantage of that big draft.
That's a pretty smooth move there going into Lake Home. That's a very textbook style move from him, but that is really the biggest overtaking opportunity on this entire track. So I don't think that will be the last driver we see try and take advantage of that.
Yeah, beautiful camera work here. We're riding along with Myron Ianni through Puhan, and this is one place where the Radical cannot quite take it flat. You got to lift and maybe brush the brakes on entry, but tell you what, the rest of this track, it feels like the Radical was built for it. Excellent trail braking, fantastic mechanical grip. These cars are fantastic to drive, especially when on these tracks with high-speed sweepers such as Spa. Outstanding stuff here.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding stuff so far. I mean, this track is one that we expect to see great racing out of every time we visit it here on this Radical Esports Cup schedule. It's been a fixture of the schedule ever since I joined the series back in Season 1, and it's still a fixture, and this is why. It's just hard racing here. You can see James Berry trying to sneak away, and there's contact there up towards the front. Oh my God, that is absolute chaos there up towards the front, but a fantastic move there pulled off as well.
Yeah, that was never going to work. 3 wide into the bus stop. There are going to be some people grumpy over whoever instigated that one. Now it's Hernandez from Berry, from Sanchez, from Rye, from Ianni. McCutcheon getting the worst of that encounter. He's all the way down to P6. And my goodness, I'm not sure who was poking it on the inside there, but that was very unlikely to happen without creating some kind of conflict. And I'm hearing from Josh, it was our boy James Berry, last year's champs. We're going to ride along with him, and you see him peeking inside here. And oh my goodness, that's Friedrich maybe overslowing a little bit there and causing the clog. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree that Berry is faultless there. It may have been Friedrich maybe panicking a little bit, seeing Berry on his inside, and kind of washing out into the entry of the bus stop there. Wow, non-stop action here so far at Spa.
And thankfully now I can finally see it all going on. It was actually timed out beautifully because right as I rejoined the iRacing chefs, if I can spit my words out, if I was riding on board with James Berry right as that incident happened there. So it was kind of very fitting there that happened pretty much simultaneously here. But we're taking a look at a replay here to see some 3-wide action going into the Lake Home chicane. You can see this. It's going to be a pretty nice move. I believe this is involving Ianni there. He was the one that lost down 2 spots there. But you can see some nice 3-wide action going down the Camel straightaway. We might get a replay here with James Berry here. I believe this is going into the exact same chicane farther up the road. You can see Berry closing, going down that Camel straightaway, and he just gets a beautiful run trying to get it done around the outside. He actually clears them well before they get onto the brakes into that corner, so that's a fairly textbook move there from James Berry.
Yeah, really nice move there from Berry. He has moved up 3 positions now, taking advantage of some contact by competitors in front of him and has moved into the lead. But Hernandez is not going to lay down for it, and these 3 are not done. Now it's Berry from Hernandez from Sanchez, and those 3 Radicals are within 0.7 of a second, I'm going to say, with Lucas Rees another second or so back. So these Radicals do tend to train up a little bit due to aero considerations on these tracks with the long straightaways. So we'll see some trains forming as we go here.
I think this might be the sort of a train here. We're following this battle involving McHutchinson there. You can see the very bright blue car there. You can see a little bit of bump drafting going into the Eau Rouge there. That is very sketchy. You don't want to try any sort of bumping action going through Eau Rouge. That would end an absolute disaster. But you can see here what I thought was going to be some training action is actually some 3-wide action here yet again involving the same drivers that we saw before. That's a very aggressive block there heading into the chicane there. But you can see Ianni trying to get the move done here. Oh no, there's contact and he crashes into Ianni. That is a driver spinning wildly out of control. You can see Ianni taking a shortcut through the chicane there just to avoid hitting the wall or rejoining the track unsafely. But there, ooh, you can see some chaos there as he rejoins the circuit. Oh, and there's chaos farther behind. You can see a driver spinning wildly out of control heading through turn 7 there. So a lot of chaos happening in this race.
Yeah, that was Lelevre getting a wild ride on the entrance to Puhan, and he had a little tap there. Not sure if he moved over or had someone move into his rear, but you saw the result. And here is our replay of Berry being overtaken by Sanchez. Now 3 wide with Sanchez, Berry, and Rees. My goodness. Wow. fantastic racing, and I told you folks that there was going to be action there on the entrance to Lacombe, and it has been nonstop both there and on the entrance to the bus stop. Some pretty aggressive driving here today. This group is usually fairly mellow, but when you get on Spa, you get a little extra motivation.
Well, I think they know it's at stake. They want to win a race and a broadcast here on Apex Racing TV, so that might be the reason why a lot of these drivers are pushing really hard. But you mentioned how this is an aggressive race. Really, this is the most aggressive game of leapfrog I've seen in my entire life, because that's really what these slipstream races are in these cars. You can just see drivers passing each other basically every other straightaway. We're seeing some side-by-side action here. Going into the bus stop, you can see a big lock up there, and Jorge Gonzaga is getting hung out to dry there. He's going to lose one position there to Walters and another one to Cadora. I believe he's going to lose another one there to Lievre there. So they're going to go side by side. Actually, I think he'll be able to clear him. No, he cannot. You can see trying to go for a move there down the inside. That's going to be pretty close there heading into the first corner. But Jorge Gonzaga dropping back like a rock right now. You can see he's now basically at the tail end of this fight. I think he will be at the tail end of this fight in a few moments' time once Holkonen tries to get by him. But you can see here Farina and Gonzaga going side by side into Erosion. He manages to get the move done there. So Jorge Gonzaga postponing his execution there, at least for a little bit.
Wow, what a show these folks are putting on today. And Franco Sanchez, by the way, quietly leading Barry up in P1, has moved up 7 positions. And there were a couple of offs in there, but there's a handful of legit passes in there too. So Sanchez on fire at the moment. And what is his fast lap currently? He's gotten into the 212s, a 2:12.93 out of Sanchez, out of nowhere, has charged his way through the field and now leads Barry from Rye, from Hernandez, from McCutcheon, who's beginning to claw his way back toward the front after a couple of bits of bad luck out here at Spa.
You can see that absolute greaser there from Andres Frieder currently running in 6th. You can see him at a 2:12.5. So a lot of these drivers setting in some quick lap times. And yeah, again, it goes back to the point that I was mentioning a little bit earlier when I was completely blind, but it is still a good point that these cars, these drivers tend to go really fast in these races just because they have time to get tire temperature, brake temperature. They are able to build up confidence in these cars, even though these cars have a lot of aerodynamics working on their behalf. Mechanical grip is still pretty important, and confidence is key when it comes to mechanical grip cars. So that could be the reason why we see these drivers setting in absolute greasers of lap times here so far in this race.
Yeah, and certainly the lap times are going to drop when you're able to train up on the back there on the Kemmel Straight. You'll definitely see faster race times than solo qualifying times at Spa for that reason. But Sanchez doing a good job putting a gap on Barry now. He's got it up to a half second. And when you're heading around La Source and heading on to the long stretch here, the bigger gap you can have, the better, because as we'll see, you can watch on our timing tower there on the left-hand side of the screen, the operation of the draft. Barry has a 0.3 gap, and you're just going to watch it tick, 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 tick all the way down to 0 by the time they get to Lacombe. And here goes Barry looking again at that outside move that worked for him on a previous lap. And now it's Rees looking on the other side. And my goodness, Sanchez loses 2, just as we saw McCutcheon do a couple laps ago. This race is nuts, folks, today.
That would have been a beautiful move from Rees if he was able to pull it off and get 2 cars at once, but you can see there the very bright car of Sully Ryan, and they're spinning wildly out of control heading into the chicane. More contact made there. We've had a lot of drivers making contact there just from errantly moving over to one side of the track, trying to set themselves up through that chicane, so we were expecting a lot of moves there, but we've also seen a lot of crashes there so far. We're going to get a replay to see. Oh boy, you can see another car there off going down the Kemmel straightaway. Not sure what in the world happened there. You can see this is Reinen here coming into the corner. He was blinking wildly there, so having some kind of connection issue that could have led to the crash there. But that was, once again, another accident going down the Kemmel straightaway. So a lot of these drivers just seeing the red mist in this race and smelling blood in the water.
Yeah, they are definitely not doing a good job lining up for the entrance to that chicane, for sure. And here we're going to see Ayani, I think, getting loose, coming up onto...
Ooh.
Oh my goodness.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh, boy. Yeah, the drivers that were the first to arrive on the scene of the accident that just barely thread the needle there and nearly hit his car going about 150 miles an hour. I'm sure they definitely don't have clean pants after that, but that was a very bizarre accident there. It was a little bit of bump drafting that led to the accident. We're getting another angle here, going down the Camel straightaway, following Ayani, now looking from his rear view bumper there, going, ooh, yeah, that was... I don't think that was a very well-executed move there from the driver, the number 16 car there that was right behind him, the number 16 being driven tonight by Dorian Lievre, but you can see another off here for Gonzaga there. That's Gonzaga and Farina there going off through the bus stop chicane. So a lot of these drivers just banging into each other. We're going to get a replay to see what in the world happened here, but these drivers are really just driving, I don't want to say like jack bleeps tonight, but three wide action into the bus stop is never going to work out well. And unfortunately, all three of those drivers get taken out as a result. They're all still moving still, but damaging their races. I think at this point, probably half the field has been involved in some kind of incident throughout this race. It's definitely a race of attrition so far.
Yeah, there is some pea and vinegar in the air today at Spa. Normally, these drivers, being in such a well-known to each other and tight-knit community, are pretty polite and respectful of each other. We are not seeing that today. An unusual level of aggression here at Spa, and here's more of it. As I say that, we're trying to look three wide into Puhan, which would never work, folks. Oh my goodness, this is just wild. And meantime, shout out to our colleague Chad Henson, who, minding his own business, has moved up from P20 to P13, picking his way through the wreckage of all these offs that we're seeing here. This is way messier than any radical race that I've ever seen, Ron.
Well, as someone who's part of the broadcast of the Radical race here, back when it was a Radical Racing Challenge back in Season 2, where the car drove like absolute crap and there was about 22 drivers at the 24 that crashed in that race, I'm getting bad flashbacks to that, and that's not really a good thing. But this race has been chaotic so far. My jaw is still basically on the floor after, I mean, the leader is nearly going three wide into Puan. I mean, that was... I'm at a loss for words at this point. I mean, the racing is incredible, don't get me wrong, but we also have a lot of these drivers seeing the red mist. I mentioned the red mist a few moments ago, and that really is the only way I can describe it. These drivers are just driving like maniacs in this race. I'm not saying it's a bad thing because it's really entertaining here in the commentary booth, but I'm sure a lot of these drivers are going to exchange some not very pleasant words after this race with each other, and I can't really blame them. This has been hectic so far.
Yeah, after and during the race, there has been some very salty exchanges over iRacing comms. And yeah, Ron, I'm a little speechless myself. I think that's a great way to put it. The kind of lack of judgment on some of these entries, particularly to the bus stop and to Lacombe, is just we're not accustomed to seeing out of these drivers. And here's more contact into Lacombe. My goodness, commentators curse there. And that is Rees, Sanchez, and Barry still going at it. Barry's now in P3 in that train, sniffing around the outside, seeing if he can get something done. And there's about, oh my gosh, about 0.3 seconds between those three cars. And man, what a battle. This has been nonstop action. Unbelievable.
So we have standards of practices here at Apex Racing TV, so we can't say the words that you would want, but this is really a shiitake mushroom show right now. This is absolute chaos all throughout this field. A lot of drivers banging into each other, but despite that, there's only two drivers out of the race so far. You can see Ayani, I believe he's Alt F4 out of the session and will not be rejoining, but I believe actually Galus, who's involved in a crash earlier, he's 3 laps down, hopelessly out of contention, but he has still rejoined the race. And with how things are going so far this race, I think he'll probably be within a good shot of maybe grabbing one more position, certainly on Ayani, as he's just quit with this race, and I can't really blame him for doing so after the chaotic series of events that happened to him. But wow, this is unlike any other Radical race I've ever seen. This Radical series has been absolutely wonderful so far this season. I'm not saying this race isn't wonderful because it's really exciting, but this is probably the most chaotic Radical race I've covered. I'm certainly sure that our producer Josh and you, JR, can definitely agree with that, because this is absolute chaos here, and there's still some more hard action here at the front of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. As Barry then makes the move there into the bus stop, a popular scene for both crashing and overtakes. And now Barry's going to look around the outside of Rees heading into La Source. Can he make this one stick? Yes. Rees is not going to contest that, allowing Barry through and maybe imagining setting him up for a pass on the entry to Lacombe at the end of the straightaway here. And meanwhile, I've got to give a tip of the hat to our colleague Chad Henson, who is our current hard charger, has picked up 7 positions, was 9 positions a minute ago. Looks like he's in a fight with Berger and Kadura, but Chad looking really good, keeping it clean, being patient, and letting that race come to him. So as I said, he'll be stopping in and talking with us about his experience today, and I'll be looking forward to hearing his thoughts. And there is Rees, Sanchez, and Barry now. Barry's left La Source in P1 and falls to P3 on that entry, and that is the work of that powerful draft on that Kemmel straight. Wow, this race is nuts.
He might fall even more. You can see Leon Hernandez running in P4 has caught up to this fight, so you can see you can cover all 3 of these cars with a blanket right now, and I think Leon Hernandez might be within a good shot. We're coming to the white flag this time by, and I gotta wonder, what's the advantageous position to be in? Do you want to be in the lead? Probably not after how quickly Barry fell, but you can actually see that Rees is actually expanding his gap. You can see about 2 or 3 car lengths separating him and Sanchez there as they nearly go 3 wide heading into turn 12 there. That would have been a very advantageous move there coming into that corner there, but I gotta wonder, what is the spot that you want to be in by the time they go on to the Kemmel straightaway? You probably don't want to be in the lead. You want to be in 2nd, 3rd, or even 4th.
Well, I'll tell you, Ron, the formula that we've seen unfold on a couple of laps here is the P3 driver doing the big move, or the P1 driver rather, falling back into P3 on the entry to Lacombe on almost half of the laps here so far. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Hernandez try to stick it in here on Barry into the bus stop. Barry covers. Hernandez will stick it in 3 wide. Hernandez, oh my goodness, that is not going to win him any friends. He has knocked Rees into the infield there. That's going to result in a slowdown. And Hernandez maybe being the gentleman there and letting those drivers back in front of him for the white flag. Wow, that was both expected and unexpected, I would say.
That was a kamikaze dive and a half there from Leon Hernandez. That was never going to work there, and unfortunately he's lost out even more time. And I think it really killed Rees's chances as well, because he's dropping down to 4th, down behind Mick Hutchinson, who's now moved into the final podium place for now. I think we'll see Mick Hutchinson possibly get ganged up here coming into Kemmel, but you can see here, you can see side-by-side action here with Sanchez and Barry heading into the Kemmel straightaway, and Sanchez gets a move done there, and Barry coming into the turn 5, 6, 7 chicane of Lacombe there. That was nice and good racing there, and I think some more action happened farther behind. This is a replay that we're getting here to see the chaos that unfolded at the bus stop chicane. I can get my words out here. Leon Hernandez, yeah, that was a dive and a half there, and unfortunately it took the leader out of, well, it didn't take him out of the race because he's still rolling around, but it definitely took him out of contention as he had to serve a pretty lengthy slowdown after cutting the second half of that chicane.
Oh, absolutely. He was completely wronged by that move. Went all the way down to P7 when he had a good chance of bringing this one home in the lead. And again, some more salty exchanges over iRacing comms as we are under white flag conditions now. Heading into Lacombe at Sanchez from Barry, from McCutchinson, from Hernandez, from Friedrich. Now Sanchez, Barry, and McCutchinson may have an opportunity here to mix it up into the last for the last time entering into the bus stop. And based on what we've seen so far, these drivers are not shy about sticking it in there. Barry's got about 0.4 gap ahead of him to Sanchez, and about 0.7 behind him to McCutchinson. So Barry needs to close this down if he wants to make a move, and it is closing down. 0.2 now. That draft going to work. 0.1 now. Is Barry going to send it? Sanchez covers the inside. Barry is going to try the outside entry into the bus stop. Can't quite make it stick. Oh my goodness. And it is going to be Sanchez from Barry, from McCutchinson for the podium. And my goodness, madness. And I'll tell you, Rees is going to be walking around the virtual paddock looking for Hernandez for knocking him through the bus stop and making him pick up that slowdown. That hurt.
A lot of these drivers are really annoyed after the race that they just had. A lot of drivers are really upset. Just looking through the chat, drivers are just really annoyed, and I mean, I can't really blame them because that was one of the most hectic and chaotic radical races that I've ever seen. And it's something that you tend to expect as we see some donuts from your race winner here tonight, Franco Sanchez, but something you come to expect at a really popular track. You're going to see drivers that may not be too familiar with the series and with these cars just trying to come in here and trying to have a good time and eventually crashing in and ticking off some of these drivers that are regulars with the series. But I'm really at loss for words. I'm not sure if it's the fact that I could only see after lap 4 pretty much. And as soon as I joined into the session once again after my iRacing decided to unscrew itself, I just saw chaos almost immediately. So, oh man, I'm really at a loss for words. I've been covering this series forever, and that's I really don't know what to say.
Yeah, that was madness. And sneaking into the broadcast booth with us here is our colleague Chad Henson. Today's hard charger moved up from P20 to P11 in a race that can only be described as madness. Chad, I'm not sure if you were aware of everything that was going on, but this was one of the messier radical races that we've ever seen. And it looked like just keeping your nose clean and driving a little bit cautious got you a big handful of those positions. How did that race work for you today?
Dude, there was smoke and body parts flying all over the place. You're absolutely right. I got lucky. Recky McReckington, the guy who was taking everybody out, was in front of me the whole time, so I had a little bit of advanced notice that something was going down up there. And I didn't have to lift or brake excessively, but just, planning ahead, looking ahead down the road, I was able to avoid most of the carnage. It's really funny, I did a test race earlier today, and this one was almost a carbon copy in terms of where the incidents were. So just kind of knowing where the lanes were to avoid carnage when people get spun and stuck in the middle of the track was really helpful.
Well, I got to tell you, I've been covering these for quite some time, and so has Ron. And the level of aggression and kind of poor judgment on setting up passes into the bus stop and into Lacombe was something that we've never seen out of these radical drivers before. So that part was interesting. And so, Chad, I was telling our viewers during the race that you were a GT3 driver and you finally relented to my endless nagging to get you out here to try these radicals. So moving from a GT3 car into the radical, what was that experience like, and would you recommend that folks give it a try?
Well, you couldn't pick a better car track combination to baptize me in the radical congregation here. It was an absolute blast. I have driven this track in the RSR, the GT1 Aston Martin, the GT3 in Porsche. I've driven it in the Lambo recently, and I have to say, hands down, without question, this car was my favorite on this track. And the reason is, it is so easy. I don't want to say it I don't want to say that in the wrong way, but it's like it's doable to drive this car with the pedals. So I do a lot of my steering in these slower corners, either on throttle, because the diff is just set perfectly to rotate the car when you start to roll on throttle, and this thing loves to trail brake. So get the brake bias right, and you don't have to brake very hard. You just kind of lightly trail brake, and it turns itself. So I just felt like I was able to keep up momentum and speed throughout the track. I'm not the fastest on track by any means, but once you start getting in the draft and you get help from those faster guys in front, if you can race clean and you know how to rotate the car, it is just an absolute pleasure to drive.
Well, I'll tell you, you are 100% right about the trail braking, particularly on this track. And it kind of reminds me of the famous Mario Andretti quote where he said, it amazed him how many people thought the brake pedal was to make the car slow down. It's really to make it to turn. And this radical does a fantastic job at that. All right, Chad. Well, thanks for swinging by. I think we've got James Berry waiting as well. But before we get to James, Josh, maybe we can take a look at the results. I've been talking, and we haven't even been through our final standing. So we can take a quick look at that.
Thanks for the broadcast, guys. Tons of fun. I'll see you later.
Yeah, thank you for coming by, Chad. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's good fun. Thanks for having me in.
All right, and here are our final results for round 4. Utter mayhem, the Radical Esports Mayhem Cup today. I am just speechless at some of the decisions that we saw being made by these drivers today. But thankfully, I am not the steward today. So in any event, it was Franco Sanchez, James Berry, and John McCutcheon coming out of digging his way back out of a hole that he dug about midway through the race to comprise your podium. Then Hernandez, Friedrich, Kyriakopoulos, Lelevere, Walters, Eggerston, and our colleague Chad Henson comes across the line in 10. That is your top 10. Then we have Kadura, Berger, Kent, Varinia, Gonzaga, Jaski, Reitinen, and Holkinen coming in 18. And there in the back, Rees. Lucas Rees fell all the way to 19th. That was our leader at one time. He must have just kind of got aggravated and taken a spin in the grass there toward the end. Gallus and Iani. So there are our final results in what is a wild one. And speaking of wild ones here, let me grab James. And he was in the midst of a lot of this craziness that was going on here. Oh my goodness. All right, James Berry. We have been somewhat speechless and looking for words to describe what we saw today. There was definitely some lapses in judgment going on out there, and a level of aggression that we are not accustomed to seeing out of you guys. So how did that race unfold from your perspective?
And it was crazy, as you said. It felt like a whirlwind around me at times, and unfortunately I was like right in the epicenter of it, where I wasn't really being affected because people were spinning out left, right and center. The aggression you say, I mean, it's just when we have these situations with 4 drivers going into a corner with the slipstream and these cars, it's just, I don't know, it's so difficult, to be honest. It's ideal if everyone plays it safe, but you have people like Franco, who won the race, to be fair to him, but he did not want to let anyone stay in front of him. He was attacking at every instance, and to be fair to him, it worked because he stayed out of trouble and he got to the front, so fair play to him. And I mean, yeah, there were other incidents where it didn't go so well. I did see those.
Yeah, we had some wild stuff going on. 3 wide into the bus stop on a number of occasions. You were involved in at least 2 of those, and we had 3 and 4 wide going into Lacombe on a number of occasions. And holy cow, the body parts, the contact, and people spinning off. It was utter mayhem out there. And meanwhile, you managed to pull out a P2, and but maybe you can tell me something interesting was happening on the, between La Source and Lacombe. A couple of drivers, yourself included, left La Source in P1 and ended up in P3 due to the draft at the end of the straight. So what was going on there?
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you're in first, coming out of La Source, and you've got 2 guys behind you, you're pretty much in third. If they want to go past you, they can. The thing is, when you have so many laps left in a race, I don't want to start playing mind games at that point. If I'm in first and I know I'm going to get overtaken, I'm just going to let it happen, because at that point of the race, it doesn't really matter. It all comes down to the last lap. So, it is what it is. It's all about the last lap, where you can position yourself on the last lap and how you think everyone else is going to attack and defend. And it's all strategic like that.
Yeah, well, fantastic driving, and you were in the eye of the hurricane for a lot of that, so very well done. And last season's overall champ, James Berry, and P2 today, great job. And as we wrap up here, is there anyone you want to give a shout out or thank today?
No, just thanks to you guys again for what you do. It's great, and I can't wait to watch the broadcast now. So,
yeah, absolutely. And thanks for coming by to see us, James, and good drive.
Cheers guys.
All right, and Ron, looks like we've got Denis stopping by to chat with us as well. If you got some questions for Denis today?
Yeah, I've got plenty of questions. I'm going to focus it really on the final 7 laps because that's all I got to see because of some technical issues. But oh man, I really don't know what to say about that race. Hopefully you, Dennis, can kind of talk the viewers through what kind of race we just saw.
Yeah, sure. So for me, it was completely the opposite of probably of what you showed in the broadcast, because I was not involved in incidents. It was a pretty lonely race. I just had a few laps with Andreas. Other than that, I was just enjoying the free positions, seeing cars going off track left and right. So I was able to keep out of trouble and finish with an amazing result.
Yeah, that was a pretty amazing result. I'm sure you are quite happy picking up that free positions because you ended up gaining 8 between the start and the finish. So very well put together race from you and clean overall. So I got to ask you this question. At a track like this where the slipstream is so important and it's such a popular track, do you think the reason why we saw a lot of chaos in tonight's race is just because of how popular this track is and how big the slipstream is? Or do you think there's other reasons as to why that could have been the case this week?
I think you got it right. I think the slipstream plays a major role because the drivers that are even half a second faster per lap, they can't open the gap and they get really close in the straight line. So I'm sure that's a good reason. It's building trains, and when you have 2, 3, 4 cars wanting the same positions, then of course there's gonna be trouble.
Yeah, there was train action for sure and slipstream passes galore all throughout this race. And we're going from this track, which is one of the longest that we'll be visiting all season long here for the Radical Esports Cup, all the way to to Japan at Tsukuba there. So that's going to be a pretty interesting race and quite different from the one we had here tonight. So how do you fancy your chances heading there?
I think it's quite a technical track. You can really gain time if you take good turns. I think that I'm not the fastest, but I think I'm quite regular, and depending on what the others do, I think I can score again a good result.
Yeah, certainly if you just keep a clean track like that, which may be as much of a race of attrition as we saw tonight, I think it will be within a very good shot of grabbing a great result there in 1 week's time. So Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. Anyone you'd like to give thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, my friend David, who finishes 8th again behind me, and I know he's gonna watch the interview.
Thank you very much for that. We always appreciate you stopping by here on Apex, and we hope to see you in 1 week's time.
Thank you very much.
All right, Denis Kyriakopoulos there, as Ron said, making up a lot of ground during that race, picking up 8 positions to finish in P6. So, folks, Apex Racing TV, not just about these radicals. We have some of the best cars, best tracks, and best drivers on YouTube. So go ahead and hit subscribe, and don't forget to tick that notification icon so you don't miss anything. Just a couple examples if you enjoyed our show from Spa today. On Tuesday, we'll have the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup. Round 7 will be coming to you from Spa. On Wednesday, the brand new S1 Racing GT3 Series for more door banging action here on Spa. And if you like endurance racing, Sunday morning, the CMS IRTES will have a mixed class race, GT3s and prototypes, 3-hour enduro from Jerez. And myself and our colleague Chad will be out there wheeling that one. So show up and point and laugh at us if that suits you. So my goodness, wow, what a race, Ron! I'm still kind of catching my breath. So what do you think? I'm not that familiar with the next track. What do you think that has in store for us?
Well, Tsukuba is a very interesting track, or Tsukuba. I feel like I always butcher pronunciations, so I'm just going to try and wing it and go with Tsukuba there and pretend the T is silent. But that track is one of the shortest that we're going to be visiting. I believe the shortest track that we'll be visiting. It's going to be 28 laps long compared to only 11 that we had here tonight. It's going to be the shortest track that we visit. It's a very small track. Even in the Formula Fords racing at a track like that, you're setting sub 1 minute lap times. These drivers are going to be setting probably about 45-second long lap time. So it's going to be really a race of hard pumping action. I think we're going to see some drivers trying to attempt some moves into those corners, but I think really at a track like that, which is fairly small and fairly narrow, we haven't seen the Radicals race there really ever in my time covering the series here on Apex Racing TV. We haven't gone to a track like that, really, let alone the track itself. So I can imagine it's definitely an unknown quantity for a lot of these drivers. I'm sure they're going to get plenty of practice between now and next Friday's broadcast here on Apex Racing TV. But I think it's going to be a race of chaos, a race of attrition, much like we saw here tonight.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. So join us next Friday, 2100 GMT, for round 5 of the Radical Wild Radical Race. I might have to change the name of the series. And that is going to do it for us today. So thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for spending your Friday with us. And on behalf of myself, J.R. Gregory, my partner, Racing Ron Mons, and our producer, Joshua Wilkie, thank you so much and have a great weekend.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.